Happy Wednesday. We are halfway through the week, and if you follow me on social media, you know that Mufasa is always napping nearby. So, true to form, he is here with us today. So, I am going to start going live once a week, every week, to talk about a different theme for every month. And this is going to be our first one for May. And today we are going to be talking about the impact of overworking and overcommitting in your business and professional life, and the impact that that can have on your family, on your kids, on your partner. Because the truth of the matter is, it can have a really big effect. And we oftentimes take our family for granted, right? We feel like they're always going to be there and they understand, and we're building a business or we have a big team that we're managing, and it's really easy to say no to the family and keep saying yes to work. So, what impact does that have on us, and what does that look like? So, we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about that today. And I'm going to share some of my tips and strategies and just ways that I kind of manage my own life because I deal with this all the time. I am speaking from personal experience here, and it is not easy. Sometimes it's better than others, but this is an ongoing challenge and something that I'm always trying to make better and improve and find better, easier ways to, make this happen, and keep it effective for my business and for my personal life, right? So we let's just go ahead and jump in. I'm going to try and keep an eye out on the chat box in case anybody has any questions for me during the live. But also, if there's anything that I don't touch on today, next week I'm going to be answering your specific questions. So I know, especially on LinkedIn, if you comment on somebody's stuff, it kind of shows up on your feed and everybody can see it. So feel free to comment if you have a question that you think others might find value from or you don't mind sharing publicly. You can also comment questions on Instagram or Facebook. Feel free to DM me or send me a message, though, if you have a question that you want to keep private. I'd be more than happy to take that behind the scenes and then answer it anonymously next week when we revisit this with your specific questions. So let's just kind of talk about this. I manage two businesses. Pure Joy is my main business. I just launched another second little secret business that I'm running behind the scenes, which is a ton of fun. But I've got a lot going on. In addition to that, I volunteer with the Tybee Sea Turtle Project, which is kicking off here soon. That's really early mornings before dawn, and then really late nights when the nests start hatching. I also volunteer with Little Pink Houses of Hope to bring a breast cancer retreat to Tybee Island once a year. We're gearing up for that right now. And then I just started a new volunteer role as well to be a mentor for a single mom at Shelter from the Rain. And I love all of these things that I do. I also have a husband and a house and laundry and dishes and a kid, right? And it's so much. I hear from people all the time. I don't know how you get everything done that you get done, right? And the truth of the matter is, let's just start with being real for a second. The truth of the matter is, it's not all great all the time, right? It's just not. It's not all great all the time. I think if we can start there with some reasonable expectations, right? That it's not going to be perfect in every single one of these areas that you want to show up or that you're expected to show up. It's not going to be perfect every time. It's not going to be great every time. For example, I've got a folder over here. Listen, I have so much stacked up. This is like my to-do list that isn't my work to-do list. But I've got this folder from Little Pink, and one of our staff, she's going to be our director this year. She was down in April to help plan, and I have a to-do list a mile long as a result of that planning. And hopefully she's not watching my live today. Hey, Kathy, if you are. But I haven't gotten to them yet. I have had it on my calendar. I've had it on my schedule, and I still haven't gotten to it. hopefully by the end of the week this week, I will get some stuff done with little pink and get those little pieces tied up for the planning stages right now, right? But it's on my mind. It has mental and emotional weight to it that I haven't done it yet. But I think the more that we can normalize, especially as business owners and mom bosses, that things are gonna fall to the wayside sometimes. And it's also okay, right? The Little Pink Retreat is in September. We've made great headway. We have wonderful connections already in place. It's okay. It's okay if it has to wait a day or a week or 3 weeks, right? Now, if it were a little closer to time, maybe I would need to rearrange some things to bring it up in priority, right? But it's okay. So let's just start off with normalizing the fact that it's not going to be perfect all the time. It might not even be good all the time. And that's okay. You're a human. You can give yourself the grace, right? If you ever forget that and need encouragement, send me a message. I'm happy to remind you. I can tell you about something that I've dropped the ball on, and we can commiserate together, and I can be, your entrepreneur buddy, and just encourage you that you are normal and it is okay. So, what tends to happen, especially for high achieving women, is we're like, I can get it all done, right? And we don't know how to half ass anything, right? Like we show up and we show up well every single time. And so, we are so driven by the need to achieve and the need to do well and the need to not let people down and the need to be able to cross it off our list and know that we did it and did it well, that we pour everything into this work and business bucket and family bucket. There's lots of buckets. I don't believe in work-life balance, right? But like the family bucket starts to run dry. It starts to have an impact. It starts to suffer because of it. And our families love us and they support us and they're some of our biggest cheerleaders, but they also have needs and wants that are valid and real. I'll share with you that when I was diagnosed with cancer 4 years ago, I was working as an assistant principal at the largest school in the state, and I was also running Pure Joy on the side. And all of a sudden, when I got diagnosed with cancer, I didn't care about letting things go. I didn't care about if someone thought I was a slacker. I did not give a it didn't matter. But what I cared about was my family. I cared about telling my kid that I loved him and watching him show me that magic trick or the really bad piece of art that he drew that's still better than what I can do. All of that is what I cared about. That's the only thing that mattered. In fact, I still did my job. I still did it well. I showed up to meetings during chemo, right? Which I would not advise, don't do that. That was horrible. I have learned and grown from that experience, but I did, but I didn't care about it. I didn't care about being a good employee or being a good life coach. I cared about my kid, cared about my husband, my mom, my dad, my brother. Those are the things that really matter, right? And we don't want to get to that point though, right? So I tell you this is like sharing on the other side of the coin, but like, let's not flip it over though. Like, let's not find that out firsthand. Let's be proactive instead of reactive when it comes to nurturing that side of our life, that family bucket of our life, right? And one way that we can do that is, and I don't think I'm probably allowed to cuss on LinkedIn, so I'm just gonna say F, right? Um, one of my coworkers, when I was an assistant principal, she was another AP, and she said this hilarious thing to me. Heather Harris said, if you're out there, you get full credit for saying this. There was something that was going on, and it was hard, it was overwhelming, yada, yada. And she said, you need to chuck it in the F it bucket and forget about it, right? Chuck it in the button bucket. I even went so far as to buy her bucket and print out a label that said bucket on the bucket so that she could literally like toss things in the F it bucket, right? So get yourself an effort bucket, even if you need a literal one to be able to remind you. And when things come up at work that like it honestly doesn't matter. Like at the end of the day, it's okay. The world's not gonna like stop spinning or burn down because you had to chuck it in the effort bucket, right? Go ahead and put it in there. Like, write it on a sticky note and chuck it in there so that you can have a visualization of letting it go, right? It's okay. If you got it done and it was done, but it wasn't done like as great as you normally do it, awesome. Put it in the effort bucket. We're done, right? That's something that's going to be way more important than not pouring into the family bucket. That's the other F. Just realized that. That's the other F bucket, but that one really matters, right? We want to make sure that we have energy to pour in there and time and money and all of the resources that we have at our fingertips. We want to prioritize our family just as much as work, if not more, right? If not more. So get you an effort bucket, put those things in there that don't matter, accept the fact and really own the fact that you have the grace to say, this isn't working well. I am going to just do what I can do and really make sure I'm proactively pouring into that family bucket to the point that it's overflowing with love and time and attention and caring, right? That the family doesn't feel neglected or left out. And then listen, when that cup is overflowing, when that bucket, that family bucket is overflowing, if you have a season in life where things are busier or harder or require more of you, it's okay, right? Like you filled up that bucket with all the goodness and it's okay. It's so much easier for your family to be able to ride those waves when you have poured into them well, right? Um, if you are constantly saying no to them and draining them, the next time a legitimate big project comes up where you really feel like you can't, like there's no wiggle room, right, for doing something less than perfect, it's going to cause a fight. It's going to cause issues. They are going to be hurt. It is not going to go over well, right? So pouring into them ahead of time and being proactive is one of my best tips for you today. One of the ones that you can walk away with today and go ahead and implement, right? Another one is open communication. Open communication. And I will give you an example out of my own personal life. Literally last night, right? So my husband's a nurse. He works 3 days a week. He is home 5 days a week. And he is a Leo and he loves being stuck up my butt and he wants to spend time with me and he wants to do things with me. And if he could sit in that chair instead of Mufasa all day and just talk to me while I work, he would do it. He would do it, right? In fact, right before I logged in for this live, I needed to go fill up my water. And actually, thank you. And I went out to go fill up my water and my husband was in the kitchen and he goes, well, the project that I was working on today, he was doing something in the yard. I can't do it. Long reason. I can't do it. So do you want to, oh, and he stopped himself because literally just last night I said, I may have to go pay for an office. Now that you're not working so much, which like, yay, he listened to some of my feedback and he's not overworking anymore. But I can't get alone time to do my job and run my businesses and work on my volunteer projects, right? And so I had to communicate that to him and say, hey, listen, when you ask for a simple, what do I need to pick up at the grocery store? To me, the way that's relayed to me is I have to stop my job because you're making the list right now, right? So I got to stop my job. I've got to go out in the kitchen. I've got to see what we have. I've got to think about what I'm cooking this week because I cook our dinners most nights. I've got to figure out what ingredients I need. I've got to plan out, so I don't repeat a meal or, make sure everybody's getting something they like. And it's going to be 30 minutes of me stopping my job. And I said, if I texted you something at work and you were with a patient, you're not going to stop and go out in the hallway for 30 minutes and figure out my problem or answer my question, right? But I've allowed it because I am a problem solver and I am there for you to help you do your life, right? And with my husband, I have to turn off the life coach vibe and say, figure it out, or wait until I'm done with my workday and I have the capacity to do this, right? And so I communicated that to him last night. But what's awesome is communicating that today when he was like, hey, do you want to? Oh, he stopped himself. He knows, right? He knows I'm there for him and he knows I'm going to be his partner in life. And he also knows that my business hours are just as respected as his. He clocks into the hospital for 12 hours a day, 30 minutes there, 30 minutes back, 13 hours a day. He is in the zone. And he'll do his best to message me a few times throughout the day and on his lunch break, right? But my hours are honored as well. And that's okay, right? So communication, being upfront when you're creating those boundaries and just doing it in love and with respect is a wonderful place to come from. Also, having the ability to let your partner and let your family know when you will be there for them, right? Not just, I can't talk to you right now and being a jerk about it, but like, hey, can you give me till 5? I have got to be in the zone with this work right now. But at 5 o'clock, I will be free and clear. I might need 15 minutes to like take a break and use the bathroom and get some water and like take a deep breath. But at 5:15, I am all yours and we can go over the grocery list together, right? Make it clear, set the expectation, but also let them know when you are going to be there for them. And then carve out time, pre-plan it. When's a date day that you can have with your spouse and you can be the one to plan it, invest in them, right? With your kids, we talked about this last week in some of my posts on social media. Include them in the planning. I was talking to my son yesterday on the way back from his field trip, right? I took a whole day off yesterday to be there for his field trip. It was miserable. I'm glad I did it. That was a great connection for my kid. Also, remind me never to do that again. Whoever could just shoot me a quick message if I ever talk about a field trip. Tell me, don't do that again. I'm not built for that. But we were talking about like, hey, okay, I want to make sure that we're not having too much time with you on your Xbox. What are some things that you and I can do together? What things and activities do you want to do that I want to do too? And we can spend that time together, including them in that process, making them feel seen and heard and valuable, and knowing that you care. So freaking important, right? Now, I told you we were going to talk about the impacts of what can happen if you don't do this. If that bucket is running dry, and you can look out there on all the research. I've looked at some of it lately, some of the most recent research, and relationships suffer when we overwork and overcommit outside of what's reasonable, right? And if you want to, flash back to like my parents' generation, that was happening a lot with men that were in the workforce. And there were these like traditional gender roles that a lot of the women stayed home. And it didn't work well then, right? Women just felt trapped in staying in a marriage. Didn't work well then, wasn't healthy and happy then. And now we have men and women who are both overcommitting in the same household, and neither one are taking the time to pour into each other, right? So I don't care if you're a guy or a girl listening to this, or any other gender identity or non-identity. If you're overcommitting and you have a partner in your life, it's impacting them. Maybe they're not verbalizing it. Maybe they're an internalizer and they're just processing it in their head. And maybe they're like, okay, I gotta handle it well, right? Like maybe you just started a business and they're feeling like I need to support them. And if I tell them how hard this has been on me, they're gonna feel like I don't support them. Maybe you don't receive feedback well, and maybe that's something you need to work on. Maybe your partner doesn't know how to give feedback. Maybe they feel like they'll be perceived as not supporting you, and that's the last thing they would want to do. So just because they're not verbalizing it doesn't mean that they're not having that issue. And no, you're not expected to be a mind reader. And yes, your partner should absolutely communicate to you, but also check yourself. Like, be self-aware, be understanding of how your actions and choices impact them. Own that part, right? You can't own their part, but you can own yours. Make sure you're making attempts at communication. Am I working too much? It's okay. Give them a safe space to respond, right? Maybe they are verbalizing it, but it's coming out defensively and an accusatory kind of way. You work too much. You do too much. This job is taking too much time away from the family. You always have to answer an email, don't you? right? And then when people communicate that way, we get defensive and no, I don't. I just had to do this one thing real quick, right? Like, and then communication's lost on both sides. So if you're able, if you can do that, if you're hearing those comments, take a pause button on the defensive attitude and response and say, what am I doing that's making them feel this way? How can I own this? What am I doing? Right? Maybe ask them. If you can keep your emotions in check and you can be open and curious, respond with, I'm so sorry. What am I doing that's making you feel this way? Listen to what they say. And then wrap it up with, how can I make it better? What do you need from me? Because you're important to me and I want to make sure I'm not making you feel this way. And I'm sorry that I have. So, how can I work with you to meet your needs better? I'm not going to be perfect. It'll happen again as I'm learning and changing my behaviors, but help me help you, right? We can check in on ourselves and see what's going on because the last thing you want is for your relationship to be silently suffering and you two grow further and further apart until there's irreparable damage and your partner's so checked out that it's hard to get them back and hard to even have those conversations. Okay. It impacts us on so many levels, right? Maybe you both are feeling this and you're on the receiving end of this as well. Flip that conversation around and say, hey, I get it. I get it more than anybody. I do this too, and I'm starting to realize that. So let's have this conversation. How are you feeling? Am I doing anything that is making you feel like you're not as important as my job or my work or my business, right? Okay. So those are some big bird's eye view tips, strategies, suggestions. I want to hear from you. So once a month, we're going to have our theme. I'm going to give you some of my tips, and then I want to hear your personal questions, right? What do you want to know? What specific situations are you dealing with? What conversations are you having? Listen, I am a pro. I am a badass at helping with conversations, wording things the right way, putting them in a way that will make your communication come across effectively, and not elicit a defensive response in your partner as much as possible. So, what are your questions? What do you want specific guidance and feedback with? I will answer those questions next week in our live, and I will give you all of the help that you need. Remember, when I answer your questions, it will stay anonymous. I will not put you on blast. I will not share your name or how you contacted me, unless you comment publicly on a social media post. It will remain anonymous. So please feel free to submit those to me, and I will get them to you next week on our live. Thank you guys so much. You'll have a wonderful rest of your week and happy Wednesday.